Hey, good morning again. This is David Barry, the Master of Building Dreams. I'm here in Las Vegas. It's a little bit chilly outside. That's why I've got my sweater on. And we have our founder of Leaving California with us, Terry Gilliam. He's in Florida, the lucky dog. Good morning, Terry. How are you?
I'm doing great, David. It's good to see you.
And today we have a special guest, a friend of mine from the Houston area. This is Sonnet. And I don't know what the weather's like in Houston, but I'm sure he's going to share some weather stuff. So good morning, Sonnet.
Yeah, good morning. A little cooler today. It's probably in the 50s, 60s. Normally we got 70s around this time, but I'll still take it, coming from the Northeast, right? So it's
For
good for me.
sure. Yeah. So this morning, like I said, we're in our Life After California, Leaving California tour. We're talking about lease options and we're giving people a different options because a lot of times people will want to move to a city. They don't want to buy right away. They're kind of wanting to try out the city and see if this is where they want to be. But I know that Terry deals with a lot of people that really want to leave California. So we're giving this as a resource for people so they know what different cities are and they get a kind of a highlight reel of this city. So today we're in Houston. I actually lived in Houston for about 10 years. It's a great city. I speak very highly of Houston. I love the town, great town. And Seth, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you share a little bit of your background and who you are and how you ended up in Houston, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of your city.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So again, Sonnet Seth, I'm part of the Seth Brothers team. Originally born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. That's why I mentioned the Northeast. So love my time in Boston, but it was getting too cold, too expensive, and just not the lifestyle I wanted to leave and live over there. So I had to leave. And I chose to move to Houston about 10 years ago, and I haven't looked back since. It's a really great city to be in. Very nice, accommodation, beautiful, master plan communities. That's kind of the scene over here where you have, these nice homes, communities with amenities, schools, walking trails, things like that. And all different kinds of cuisine you have over here. It's a very diverse and international city, which I didn't realize when I moved here about 10 years ago. So you have a lot of that as well. And really, I mean, I've been to a lot of different cities. I think this is one of the best places to, raise a family in the country, just because you have all of these things accessible to you. And personally, I've been in the real estate business for about 20 years. I've seen a lot of different things, and I'm excited to talk about, Houston and the different programs that we have to offer.
It's funny, I didn't really realize, but you had said that you're from Sugarland, is that right?
Yeah, so I live in Sugarland now. Absolutely. I've been here for about 10 years.
So we looked into Sugarland first, and that opportunity didn't wasn't available to me. So I ended up moving to the Woodlands,
Okay.
and it's just crazy how big. Some days I don't know. Vegas is a huge metro, but Houston is probably 6 or 7, 8 times bigger than the Las Vegas metro area. So maybe you could share a little bit about the metro area and how it is down in the south, all the way up to the north where the Woodlands is, and in between.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned the Woodlands, which is another fantastic part of Houston. So, when I was moving from Boston, I did my research just like anybody else would. And I'm an agent, right? So, I'm looking at it, from multiple perspectives. And, the areas that I kind of zeroed in on personally, there were several. Woodlands was one, Katy was one, Sugarland was one, these different metro areas of Houston. And all of them are very, very desirable. They have a lot to offer. And what it comes down to is where are you going to be working? Because commute times factors in for folks. I know these days we have a little bit more remote work, so that changes the game. But commuting is a factor. What you want to be close to, other school. What if you want to be close to a specific school or specific churches or temples, basically where your lifestyle takes you. And for me, I had some family kind of closer to the Sugarland area. I kind of did my research on it, and I kind of liked the fact that it was, an established city, but it was still growing. A lot of development was slated for the community. And I personally live in this master plan community called Riverstone, which at the time, 10 years ago, there was maybe about 2,000 homes there. And now we have about 7,500 homes in this community. It's been a pretty amazing, just witnessing the growth of not just the residential side, but even the commercial side. When I first moved here, it was all dirt roads and trees. And now there's supermarkets and restaurants and gated communities, and it's been pretty amazing to see.
Yeah, me too. As a real estate agent, this is why it's so important that you have a licensed real estate agent, somebody that I can feel. I already feel the passion that you have about your great city, and there are so many different options in Houston, in the Houston area, and to be able to have a licensed realtor to really help you figure out which community is best. I mean, you have a wide range, and it's a lot of square miles that you can travel. I think from the Woodlands to Sugarland, it's about an hour and a half drive. So
Yeah, it can
that
take an
can,
hour, hour and a half, and
yeah,
you can spend a lot of time and you're still in Houston. So the funny thing I tell our clients, especially moving from, higher priced areas or places where there's not as much inventory, I tell them the great thing about Houston is that you have a lot of options. And then I said the tough thing about Houston is that you have a lot of options. It can be really
okay,
hard to
yeah.
narrow it down, because you have beautiful master plan communities all over the city, north side, west side, southwest side, where I am. I mean, there's a lot of great options. It can be a little bit difficult to narrow it down. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
Speaking with somebody who knows the area, is on the ground, is really plugged into what makes certain areas better than others, and the key things to look for is important when you're looking at a home search in this area.
Sure. So maybe we can get a little bit more generic now, and we have shared with the audience that this is a very large city, and it has so much to offer. So next, let's talk a little bit about climate, education, the cost of living, job opportunities, transportation, and things that will pertain to anybody that decides to move to the Houston area. So what's the climate like there?
Sure. So, what I tell people is, coming from the Northeast, we used to have 3 good months in the year, usually the summertime, June, July, August, September, it starts getting a little colder. And then, it kind of goes from there. Over here, it's pretty moderate climate year round. I mean, you're talking 50, 60, 70-degree days for most of the year. In the summertime, of course, it can get a bit hotter. You're going to get temperatures in the 90s and,
Yes.
push triple digits a few times. But I tell people, you know what, that trade off is worth it because, I'd rather have 9 good months and a few hot months than vice versa. And, where Houston is located at nighttime, there always tends to be a good breeze and, it's comfortable in the evening. People do sit outside, they spend a lot of time outdoors. So it's just, that daytime in the summer can get a bit hot, but the rest of the time, you're really good to go.
You guys have so much entertainment. I mean, my goodness. And by the way, congratulations. Your Astros did it. Mattress Mac looks like he made out like a bandit. And
No, he's a smart guy. He's basically taking one side, paying the other side, but that's
yeah.
good. It's good business sense.
Yeah. Mattress Mac is a guy that makes a lot of bets, and he has a furniture store there. And that's a whole nother story. We'll get into that later. But talk a little bit about the sports teams and the entertainment and the options of all the things that you can do, from going to Galveston and being on the beach to all of it. I know there's so much. We don't have a ton of time, but
Yeah.
go ahead. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, I mean, Houston is a major city, right? So you got all the sports teams, basketball, you have the Rockets, football, you have the Texans, baseball, of course, you have the Astros. So you're always going to get your sports action. Entertainment wise, you'll always have major concerts coming through here. This past week, not to date it, but there was all this Taylor Swift tickets coming out, and she's coming to Houston playing 3 shows, and that was a big deal. So any major show is coming through Houston. As far as places to go to, I mean, spending time in Galveston, it's an hour away. You also have options in Texas Hill Country if you're looking for a little bit of a different scene, more hiking and things like that. That's just an hour, 2 hours away. On the north side, kind of where you were in the Woodlands. I mean, when you're in the Woodlands, you can feel like you're a completely different city sometimes with all the beautiful trees and the landscape, and you have lakes over there. So you really have something for everyone. And what I also like about Houston is strategically, you're placed in the middle of the country and you have 2 major airports that are international. So you have very easy access to get anywhere you want to go, whether it's within the US, whether it's into the Caribbean or Mexico, or whether it's going international. You have a lot of accessibilities where you can quite often get direct flights to pretty much wherever you want to go. So
Right.
it's super, super convenient. That's what I tell people about Houston.
I didn't ask Terry this morning, but Terry, how many times have you been to Houston, and what else would you want to know about Houston that maybe I missed and I didn't ask?
Well, I've been to Houston dozens of times, and I love the town. I love the fact that just as you said, Sonnet, you've got pretty much anything you want. If you want a master plan community, you can have that. If you want a custom home, you can do that. Sonnet, can you talk about the economy? I know in the 80s, Houston was very much an oil-based economy, but now I think you've got a ton of Fortune 500 companies based there, and you've got a very diverse economy and a diversity of jobs too. So can you address that a little bit too, please?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's making Houston so great these days, as you said, Terry, because the economy has diversified. It used to be kind of a one-trick pony back in the 80s, and I think a lot of people still think it's like that, but it's quite different now. I mean, Houston has a huge medical scene. It's actually got the largest medical center in the world. So when you have a medical center and you have a scene like that, it attracts a lot of professionals from all over the world to be here. You also have a pretty thriving tech scene, and also the fact that Texas is a business friendly state. As you mentioned, companies are moving here. They're going from higher priced areas, and they can find that not only can their employees live better, but they can also provide better facilities. They can build buildings. They can have resources here which they wouldn't be able to get in other places. That's why constantly Houston has been at the top of the list of a place where people are moving to on a daily basis. And that's really what's driven the growth over the last, decade, really. And especially in the last few years, we've had a significant uptick in people moving to this area. And people moving to this area means more facilities are needed. So more development happens and more jobs get created. And it just kind of keeps going around. So that's why, it's been pretty amazing witnessing all this growth over the past decade or so.
Sonnet, I hear your passion about Houston, and I can certainly understand that, being there for 10 years. And I love your passion for that. But now we're going to get into your real passion, and your real passion being real estate. Terry mentioned something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I know Terry is very passionate about this. A lot of Californians were cheated out of having the ability to buy their own home. So they've been renters, and they just haven't had that ability. So if you would share, maybe you could do a cross comparison on some of the bigger markets in town, in the country, and talk about the real estate market in Houston. And then maybe we'll touch a little bit on this lease option stuff, because that's part of the tour that we're doing, the lease option tour. So here's your second passion. Go ahead, take it away with the real estate in the Houston metro area.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of start it kind of 10 years ago when I was doing my research. And this is what sold me on moving to Houston and then specifically Sugar Land. So I was doing my research comparing a city, a suburb in the Boston area called Newton, Massachusetts, and I was comparing it with Sugar Land. And both had very similar characteristics. They were about 25, 30 minutes from town. They had, were known for good school systems. Population was around the same, 80,000, 90,000. There were a lot of similarities. Interesting, at that time, 10 years ago, the median income was actually higher in Sugar Land. But then I scroll all the way down, and then I get to median house price. And at that time, this was again 10 plus years ago, in Newton, the median house price was 700,000. In Sugar Land at that time, it was 320,000. And then I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, you're basically having the same characteristics across the board. People are making more money here, and they're paying less than half the price for a house, right? Something is up. Like, what is going on here? And then when I came down here and I started looking at the housing stock and comparing it to what we had in Massachusetts, and again, I've been to other cities around all over the country. So now I'm in tune with this, right? So when I compare it to other housing stock that we have all the country, it's just amazing the value you get by being in this city. And it really has something for everybody. If you want to spend 200,000, 300,000, you can do that. You want to spend 400, 500,000, you can do that. You want that $1 million plus custom home, you can do that. But see, the thing is, if you spend $1 million plus over here, what you'll get over here compared to $1 million, in Massachusetts or California or pretty much anywhere else in the country on the coast, it's night and day difference. So, I tell people, what they're used to if they're in a high priced area, cut that in half in terms of the price, and that's kind of what we're looking at.
That's such a great perspective. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's such a great analogy. The home prices 50% less, and you get a better quality of living. It's
Yes.
amazing. And I'm really passionate about this. My investor that came into Las Vegas market, they came in November with this lease option program, and I've helped probably about a dozen families in the last 10 months since their inception here in our area. And maybe you could share a little bit, because sometimes people don't want to just get there and buy a house right away. They maybe so they have this option where they can come in, they can find a home that's for sale as opposed to a home that's for rent. And we know what renters do, unfortunately, to some of the homes. So when you get to pick from the cream of the crop and buy a home you get a home that's for sale, and then you have the option to buy it, and you also have the guarantee of being there for 5 years. I think this is a great option. This is something that we offer in the Houston market as well. So that is another option, right, for
Yeah.
people.
Oh, and it's a great option. As you said, especially when you're moving from another city, you're not familiar with the different areas and not sure what exactly your needs are. Having an opportunity to get into a home where you're leasing it initially and then having the ability to purchase later is incredible because, as we know, homes that are for sale tend to be a little bit nicer than homes that are for rent. And if you can secure a nice home, which you would actually see yourself living in long term, and you're able to lease it, which meets that need of not having to make that commitment yet and having a little bit more flexibility. I mean, that's a win-win situation, right? So it's an amazing program, and excited to help people through that process over here as
Absolutely.
well.
Yeah. So, and now I'm glad we got to touch on real estate, but back to Houston. What a great town. Hundreds of things to do, hundreds of things to choose from. We're gonna kind of pin you in the corner here, and we need you to tell us what's your favorite thing about Houston. If you were telling somebody, oh my gosh, this is the best. This is the best thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just tell people there's just so much convenience over here. Like having been in the Northeast, where you're, dealing with stuff like trying to find parking when you go out, or you're, looking for a nice home to live in and you're competing a lot, or, everything is just very expensive and, the vibe you get that people are stressed out all the time, right? That's kind of how you're used to being in your own environment if that's all you know, and that's all I kind of knew at that time. But being down here, people are more laid back. They do work hard, but they have plenty of time for entertaining. People get together a lot in each other's houses, and I used to wonder, why don't people get together as much in the Northeast? And then I realized it's because they don't have a lot of entertaining space in their house. They might be living in an apartment or a
Yeah,
condo,
right. Yeah,
or
yeah.
the house is very small and they have a very tiny living room,
Mhm.
but here everybody has a house really, and people, that's more of the scene, and people are getting together and everything is close by, shopping, dining. We talked about some of these nice master planned areas like Sugarland and Woodlands. I mean, honestly, you don't have to even leave those areas to fulfill all your needs for schooling, shopping, dining, recreation. Everything is basically right in your little area. And of course, when you want to venture out a little bit and try some newer restaurants or some different kinds of cuisines, of course, you can go into the town. But as I said, there's a lot of just convenience, and it's a comfortable lifestyle. Like if you come here and you start living and you compare it to where you were living before, you'd be like, wow, this is nice. It's very, very, very comfortable. It's hard to kind of go the other way. When you start from the other side and you come here, it's amazing. If you're here and you go someplace else, you're like, whoa, this might be a little
Yeah.
tough to get used to. I'm used to all this space and
Yeah.
all this parking and all this amenities, that kind of thing.
So, Sana, I think that was a trick question, because it really is. And I know personally, because I lived there for several years. You can't just really pick one thing. It's
No,
impossible. There's
it's
just
a
too
lot.
much.
Yeah.
So I was curious. I always like to do a little Q&A session. So when we talk about when you're dealing with a client that's moving from another state, doesn't have to be California, it could be anywhere. What is some of the one or two of the top questions you get when people call you and say, "Hey, we're thinking about coming to Houston. What about this?" What are those top questions you get?
Yeah, so a lot of people moving to this area, a lot of them, especially when they're coming out into the master plan community areas and suburbs, a lot of times they have kids. And schooling is a big factor for a lot of families. So they want to know what's an area that has good schools. What are my options, if I wanted to go to a private school? So that's number one. Next thing is typically accessibility. Okay, well, if I lived over here, how long would it take me to do this? Or how long would it take me to do that? Or if I'm working in downtown or if I'm working in the Galleria, what is it going to be to, how long is it going to take for me to get there? Commuting is important, schooling is important, accessibility is important. So I always try to, zero in on those factors for everybody. So I'll ask them, okay, do you have school age children? What age are they? What are you thinking, in terms of where you'd want to send them? Then I'd ask them where they're going to be working. And then I ask them, what else is important to you? What else are your needs? Are you close to other people already in the area? Are you going to have to, travel a lot? Are you going to be flying out of town a lot? A lot of consultants and big companies like that, business travel has resumed, right? So people need accessibility to airports sometimes, so things like that. I have to understand what those factors are. And then I can recommend, okay, well, based on all these things, I would say you should be here. The good thing about Houston is that, as I said, you have all these master plan communities, and a lot of the schools over here are very, very high quality. So it's not that there's only one area of Houston that you should move to. Like I said, when we started the call, like Woodlands is an area I considered as well, along with Sugarland, Katy, some other areas. They were all good. I just chose one, just like you chose one, but you have multiple good options over here. So it just kind of depends on some of those other factors as well.
We really got to explore Houston. This has been amazing. What a great city, great town. Terry, do you have anything else that you want to talk about Houston or something? Again, maybe I missed something.
No, I just think that it's great, Sonnet, that you and your team are one-stop shop. You cover the entire metro area, so
Yes,
you can educate people on the entire area, and you cover the entire area. That's great. And you
absolutely.
can help them if they're just a traditional buyer of a home, they can come see you. You can help them with a traditional purchase, or you offer this lease option where they can test drive a home, and the investor is actually buying the home for the family. They're going to lease it at least for a year, but they have the option at any time over a 5-year period to also buy that home for a predetermined price. So I just love the fact that you really cover all the bases, and I really think you're going to get a lot of business from people who really want to explore these options with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We can do it all, like you said, traditional sale, lease option, whatever the buyer's needs are or the client's needs are, we can certainly help them anywhere in the Houston area.
Awesome.
I always kind of wrap up my interview with, and you already did it. One of the things that we always talk about in our industry is we know that our clients want to know, like, and trust us. Me and Terry and I can already feel the passion. We can feel it's coming from your heart. This is, and by the way, just to remind everybody in our audience, we don't practice this. We do it one time. We don't say, oh, we got to do this again. This is all kind of off the cuff. And the one thing that always comes across in these interviews is our passion. We want to help people find that perfect home, get in a home, and do it at a reasonable price that they can afford for their family and live a really happy, comfortable life. So you already did it, but I'm gonna ask you this final question. If you were going to tell somebody why they should choose you as their realtor, what do you typically tell your clients?
Well, I tell them a couple of things. I tell them what I personally believe in is that real estate is a way to help you achieve, financial wealth and independence. I also believe that everybody should be represented by a real estate professional when they're working towards achieving that goal. And as a full-time real estate professional with many years of experience, my objective is to help the client save time, money, and make the right financial decision in the purchase or sale of real estate. And then that gets them on their goal to achieving financial independence and wealth, right? So it's really about what the objective is. Doing a deal, transactions, yes, sure. But if you truly believe that real estate is the path, well, then you need to have a partner who believes that as well. And that's what I feel. And I feel that, like I said, a good agent should be doing all of those things, saving the time, saving the money, but ultimately helping the client make the right financial decision.
Got it. Thank you so much for this insight on Houston. And we'll be sharing details on how someone can get a hold of you. And again, I just want to tell everyone, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, Sonnet is a great resource in the Houston area. He would be perfect for you. He'll help you find that dream home that you want, whether it's a $200,000 home all the way up to multi-million-dollar homes. He would be a great resource. Terry, it's always a pleasure to do these with you. I love traveling around the country. And thank you so much for joining us this morning, Terry.
Yeah, thank you, David. Thank you, Sonnet.
And
thank you, guys. Great.
And again, I'm David Berry, the Master of Building Dreams. Thank you so much for listening in. We look forward to our next city next week. And I hope you have a great weekend. It is Friday today, so have a great weekend. Goodbye, everybody.